In the grand tapestry of life, jealousy is like that one thread that keeps trying to sneak in and ruin the picture. It whispers sweet nothings at first, but then starts rotting the bones, as Proverbs 14:30 wisely points out. Oh, envy, you fickle friend, we say, always gnawing at our hearts but never bringing a snack. Imagine standing in a garden where every flower blooms, except for you, who is too busy glaring at the tulip that's flaunting its petals. Your heart, once a peaceful butterfly sanctuary, is now a battlefield of resentment. Jealousy is the dramatic diva that shows up uninvited to your party, mask in hand and intentions questionable. How is it that a woman, fearfully and wonderfully made, can harbor such bitterness? Jealousy often comes from the belief, whispered by the quintessential mean girl of our minds, that another's blessings somehow diminish our own. It's like thinking that if one cake gets eaten, you'll never have dessert again. Spoiler alert, God is the baker, and He has plenty of cakes. In a world obsessed with accolades, we often forget that our worth isn't tied to achievements or the flashy trophies others display. Galatians 6:4 nudges us to examine our own work, which at times may feel more like an endless cycle of work followed by binge-watching inspirational videos on how to stop comparing yourself to others. The tension of envy is akin to squeezing a pimple, temporary relief followed by a whole mess. Those undercover haters, once your biggest fans, now find themselves wrestling with their own unmet dreams, peeking through the glass at someone else's well-deserved blessings, as if they were on an antique velvet couch, grumbling while clutching a box of tissues. How curious it is that women can profess friendship yet harbor resentment, feeling angry at God for not delivering blessings on their personal timelines. Doesn't He know I have a schedule? They wonder, shaking their heads like they're directing a soap opera. But let's be real, it's our expectations that often lead to divine drama. Psalm 37:4 offers hope, encouraging us to delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. But when jealousy creeps in, delight becomes more of a distant notification than a fulfillment. Suddenly, we're binge-watching our big dreams on a loop, while they replay commercials of other people's success stories. Ladies, listen up. God doesn't owe us a checklist of blessings just because we've punched our time card in the spiritual realm. How bold it is to assume that the Creator of the universe owes us anything. He gave us His all, His one and only Son, so complaining about our waiting room feels a bit like griping about the waiting time at a 5-star restaurant while you sip complimentary water. When we drone on about feeling overlooked, we forget that God sees us, culprits of our own perceived inadequacies. John 3:16 reminds us that we are forever loved. Why else would He send His Son? That act alone should snuff out the flames of jealousy and remind us of our rightful identity. To be honest, we need some spiritual grit and grace when met with those jealous emotional roadblocks. We find ourselves questioning not just our blessings, but where our hearts sit. Are we seeking God for who He is, or just for what we think He owes us? It can feel a bit like showing up to a buffet and only ordering dessert, sweet but lacking substance. As we dig deeper, we might discover that God isn't withholding blessings to teach us a lesson. He's preparing us for our grand debut. Perhaps He desires a relationship that goes beyond our thank yous for the good stuff, wanting us to engage in real heart-to-heart conversations instead of guilt trips and tantrums like a toddler in a toy store. Watching others receive blessings can evoke envy, an emotion best described as the green-eyed monster in a sequined gown, sulking in the corner while the rest of us dance. But let's not forget, just because someone waltzes across the dance floor doesn't mean our moment isn't coming. James 3:16 sounds the alarm, for where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. So, when those envy-tinged thoughts bubble up, let's remind ourselves that stoking jealousy leads to chaos, a veritable party foul at life's grand ball. What would happen if we reframed our view of those who succeed? Picture this: every woman flourishing is a piece of confetti in God's grand celebration, rather than a rival contestant on a reality show. Romans 12:15 urges us to rejoice with those who rejoice, which honestly sounds like a much better time than standing in the corner scowling. Indulging in jealousy can breed bitterness, like stewing cabbage in a closed pot. We must flip our perspective. Perhaps it's time to be our sister's biggest cheerleaders. After all, cheering someone on only grows the size of our faith bouquets, not diminishes our own lovely blooms. As the angry woman grapples with the struggle, could she find that the heartache is a reflection of trusting God's timing? Every time we look to the left and right, we might trip on our own shoelaces as life moves forward. Having faith means marching confidently down our own unique path, not stumbling over someone else's success. While life may feel like an endless waiting game, let's not forget the words of Matthew 6:33, "Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." Put simply, seek God first, and His cup will overflow. Trying to sneak around the back for blessings just ends up in a food fight. Jealousy often teaches the wrong lesson, that God's blessings are a limited edition. What a misconception! His grace is not a pie to be sliced in, but an endless fountain overflowing with more than enough to go around. Talk about divine buffet-style service. Where, oh where, does the angry woman channel her energy when bitterness sets in? Instead of simmering in jealousy, let's channel that into prayer and connection. Nothing cuts through the discord faster than presenting our hearts to God, asking for both clarity and a generous helping of good spirit. We need to guard our hearts. Envy is like that pesky houseplant that you forgot to water, blooming nowhere but in the guttural angst of waiting. The only one left with a bitter taste in their mouth is you. So let's pluck those weeds and cultivate a garden of hope instead. The beauty of friendship comes from not just supporting one another's successes, but building each other up. Hebrews 10:24 suggests, "And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds." You could say we're creating a chain reaction, but instead of explosions, it's all about magnifying love and joy. At the end of the day, we are all mirrors reflecting fragments of God's design and love. The question is, which reflection will we choose to amplify, love or jealousy? When hearts connect and celebrate each other, we might just find ourselves healed in the process, a win-win. Do we then dare to dig deeper? Surrendering jealousy can lead to the best cake bake-off of all time, the one where you find joy, not just filling your pie chart with desires. Could it be that God simply desires us to kneel at His feet, seeking His heart rather than things? The most marvelous thing happens when we dare to step out of our cynical corners. We start to see other women not as rivals, but as allies. Together, we become cheerleaders for each other's dreams, growing our hearts instead of our envy. Let's not pretend that feeling angry is off limits. It's human. But it's at those moments, in Psalm 84:11, that we are reminded that the Lord God is a sun and shield. The Lord bestows favor and honor. When we call out, God doesn't just listen, He holds a party in our honor, center stage. Could we dare to celebrate our struggles too? Rather than letting jealousy rear its ugly head, let's laugh together at our mishaps and missteps. The heart can become an abundant dance floor where we learn to celebrate the very disparities we once envied. The world could use more loving, fierce women. When we forgive ourselves for feeling less than and reframe that energy into light-hearted banter and sincerity, we can change the whole atmosphere. It's permissible to shout, "You're fabulous," even while secretly wondering why that flouncy dress looks better on her. Every time bitterness creeps in, let's remember to sidestep it like we would a puddle. Philippians 4:6 brings us back to the ground, instructing us not to be anxious but to present our requests to God. A good strategy for when we find ourselves face to face with jealousy. Have a heart-to-heart with the Almighty. In recognizing our shared circumstantial realities, we can build walls of solid faith rather than pickets of jealousy. Friendships, after all, are meant to pilot each other into the good works that God prepared for us, not as unwitting saboteurs. Believe it or not, every success you witness and every joy somebody else experiences is an opportunity to sow seeds of positivity, not just for them, but for your own garden of abundance. When we invest in another's blessing, we cultivate substantial joy that ripples back into our lives. Ladies, it's time to gather our inner cheerleaders and don the brightest pom-poms. In the kingdom, our success fuels growth, and your jubilant callouts can help your friends see their worth and potential as well. Let's create a pep rally of divine dreams. In closing, may we shed the chains of insecurity that weigh us down, opting instead for a collective celebration of life's wins. John 13:34-35 rings true as a finale for our mission. Our love for one another speaks volumes about our shared journeys and God's abundant grace. So let's lift our heads, grab the confetti, and rejoice together. Life is too short to be a spectator. Let each of us rise together, moving from jealousy to jubilation, a triumphant chorus proclaiming God's goodness. Finally, may we choose to see each other as brothers and sisters, marching together in time with the heavenly rhythms of grace. Let's hold a banner of unity high, embodying God's calling for our lives as vessels of love and courage. Our stories are disparate but collectively significant, each stir in the water a ripple affecting the next. When women unite in faith instead of division, we showcase a tapestry woven with threads of resilience, joy, and love. When we resist envy and shift our focus from wishing to celebrating, we can actually begin to flourish together, discovering the threads of Song of Solomon 2:15, a call to catch the foxes that spoil the vines of joy. So let's brandish our swords of faith and pin down the sources of jealousy. There's no greater army than women empowered by grace, and when we uplift each other, there's no envy left to battle. Let's indulge in true camaraderie, a celebration of the strength that comes when we embrace the victories of others. Instead of waiting for our moment, let's create our collective moment now, thriving in His love. After all, God's goodness isn't a fixed pie but rather an all-you-can-eat buffet overflowing with blessings. May our hearts be ever ready to receive what God graciously offers, all while cheering on our sisters. Let today mark the beginning of a brand new narrative, one where every accomplishment paves the way for our shared joy. Together, we can raise a banner of grace and encouragement, shouting, "No more jealousy," as we step into the abundant life He designed for all.